September 30th, 1955. State Route 466, California. A silver Porsche 550 Spyder lies crumpled like a crushed tin can at the side of the road. Inside, a young man, 24 years old, already a legend. His face is unrecognizable. The impact was that severe. Police arrive. They photograph everything. The twisted metal, the blood-soaked seat, the steering wheel bent in half. Then something happens. Those photographs disappear, vanish. For 68 years, the world is told the crash was an accident, a tragedy, nothing more. But in 2023, a dusty box is opened in a California evidence room. Inside are photographs that were never meant to see daylight. Photographs that change everything we thought we knew about James Dean's death. Here is the story. September 1955. America is standing at the edge of a new world. The war is 10 years gone. Television sets are in every living room. Teenagers are discovering rock and roll, rebellion, and a hunger for something their parents cannot give them. And Hollywood? Hollywood is about to be shaken to its core by a young man who doesn't act like the others, who doesn't smile for the cameras, who doesn't play by the rules. His name is James Dean. 3 films. That's all he's made. East of Eden is already in theaters. Rebel Without a Cause is sitting in the can waiting for release. Giant, his epic swan song with Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson, is still in post-production. 3 films. And yet everyone in Hollywood knows his name. Everyone can feel the electricity when he walks onto a lot. There's something about him, something dangerous, something real. The studio executives don't know what to make of him. He shows up late. He mumbles his lines. Refuses to play the Hollywood game. But when the camera rolls, magic, pure, undeniable magic. He doesn't act. He becomes. Every gesture, every glance, every moment of silence is loaded with a lifetime of pain and longing. Teenagers see themselves in him. The confusion, the anger, the desperate need to be understood. September 30th, 1955, starts like any other day. Dean wakes up in his small apartment in Sherman Oaks. He's restless, always restless. He's been forbidden by Warner Brothers to race his Porsche. Too dangerous, they say. Too much money invested in him. But racing is the only thing that quiets his mind. The only place where he feels free. So he's found a loophole. He's not racing. He's just driving to Salinas for a rally, just taking his new car for a spin up the coast. The car is a 1955 Porsche 550 Spyder. Silver with the number 130 painted on the hood and doors. Dean calls it a little bastard. He's had it less than 2 weeks. He loves that car the way some men love women. It's an extension of him. Fast, dangerous, beautiful. His mechanic, Rolf Wutherick, is riding with him. His friend Bill Hickman is following behind in Dean's station wagon, hauling the trailer they won't need now. The sky is clear. The road stretches out before them like a promise. Dean is wearing a white t-shirt, red jacket, and boots. He's got a cigarette between his lips and his hands on the wheel. He pushes the accelerator down. The Porsche responds like a living thing. 70 miles per hour. 80. The wind is screaming. For a moment, just a moment, James Dean is exactly where he wants to be. He has 3 hours to live. To understand what happens next, you need to understand who James Dean really was. Not the rebel, not the icon. The boy underneath all that. He was born in Marianne, Indiana, on February 8, 1931. His mother, Mildred, adored him, called him Jimmy, sang to him at night. But when he was 9 years old, she died of cancer, just like that. The person who loved him most in the world was gone. His father, unable to cope, sent him away to live with his aunt and uncle on a farm in Fairmount, Indiana. Imagine that. 9 years old. Your mother is dead. Your father doesn't want you. You're shipped off like cargo to relatives you barely know. That abandonment carved something deep into James Dean's soul. A wound that never healed. He spent the rest of his short life searching for connection, for meaning. For someone, anyone, to see him, really see him. That's what you witness on screen. That's the pain in his eyes. It's the pain in his eyes. That's why teenagers in 1955 looked at him and said, he understands. He threw himself into acting, moved to California after high school, studied at UCLA, took classes with James Whitmore, worked odd jobs, struggled, starved. Then moved to New York to study at the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg. Method acting, digging deep into your own pain to create truth on stage and screen. Dean was a natural. He'd been living in his pain his entire life. Broadway gave him his first taste of recognition, a small role in See the Jaguar. Ha! Then The Immoralist, where he played a gay houseboy seducing a closeted man. Critics noticed, Hollywood noticed, Ilya Kazan noticed, and when Kazan cast him as Cal Trask in East of Eden, everything changed. Cal Trask is James Dean, a young man desperate for his father's love, desperate to be worthy. The scene where Cal offers his father money and his father rejects it isn't acting. That's Dean's own heart breaking on camera. That's every moment of his childhood crystallized into 90 seconds of devastating honesty. The film opens in March 1955. Dean becomes a star overnight. But fame doesn't fix what's broken inside him. If anything, it makes it worse. Now everyone wants a piece of him. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is watching. The studio tells him how to dress, where to go, who to be seen with. They want to mold him into another pretty boy. Another Clark Gable. Another Rock Hudson. But Dean won't be molded. He buys a motorcycle, then a race car, a Porsche Speedster, then the 550 Spyder. He starts competing in amateur races. Palm Springs, Beakersfield, Santa Barbara. He's fast, naturally fast. Racing gives him what acting cannot. Pure, unfiltered presence. No performance, no pretending, just man and machine and the razor edge between control and catastrophe. Warner Brothers is terrified. They've invested millions in this kid. They've got 2 unreleased films with him as the lead. If he dies in some stupid crash, they lose everything. So they insert a clause in his contract, no racing while filming. Dean agrees, but he doesn't stop, he just waits. Giant wraps production in early September. Dean is free, finally free. He immediately signs up for a rally in Salinas on October 1st. He convinces his mechanic Rolf Wutherick to come with him, to tune the Porsche, to ride shotgun. On September 30th, they load up and head out. 3:30 in the afternoon. Dean stops for gas at Tip's Diner in Castaic. A highway patrol officer spots the Porsche, pulls Dean over for speed, writes him a ticket. Dean smiles, apologizes, takes the ticket and keeps going. That officer will never forgive himself. Quick question. Have you ever had a moment where you could have changed everything with one decision? A moment where you chose one road instead of another and it altered your entire life? Let us know in the comments. Dean keeps driving. Route 99 to Route 466. The sun is starting to drop. Golden light spills across the hills. The Porsche is humming. Rolf is nervous. Dean's been pushing it. Driving too fast for these roads. But Dean is smiling. He's happy. For once in his tortured life, he's genuinely happy. 5:45 p.m. They're approaching the intersection of Route 466 and Route 41 near Kellam, a tiny nothing town. A few buildings. A gas station. Empty fields stretching in every direction. The road ahead looks clear. Dean doesn't slow down. He's doing somewhere between 85 and 90 miles per hour. From the west, a 1950 Ford Tudor is approaching the same intersection. The driver is Donald Turnopseed, 23 years old. A college student heading home from Cal Poly. He's tired. It's been a long week. He approaches the intersection and sees Route 466 stretching out before him. He needs to turn left onto the highway, toward Tulare. He looks. He sees the road. He thinks it's clear. He starts his turn. But the Porsche's there, low to the ground, silver against the fading light, almost invisible. Dean sees the Ford pull out. He sees it too late. He screams to Rolf. He's got to see us. He's got to stop. But Turnipseed doesn't stop. He's committed to the turn. His car is sliding across the highway, directly into Dean's path. Dean makes a choice. He doesn't hit the brakes. He doesn't hit the brakes? If he brakes, the Porsche will flip. He'll lose control. Instead, he accelerates. He tries to swerve around the Ford. He thinks he can make it. He thinks he's fast enough. He's wrong. The Porsche's front left fender clips the Ford's passenger side. But at 90 miles per hour, a clip is a catastrophe. The Spyder spins, violent, airborne. It tumbles across the highway like a child's toy. Metal shrieks. Glass explodes. The steering column snaps and crushes inward, slamming into Dean's chest. His neck whips forward, then back. The impact is so severe that the entire front end of the Porsche collapses into itself, trapping Dean inside. Silence. Pure silence. For a heartbeat, the world stops. Then the hissing. Steam escaping from the ruined engine. The ticking of hot metal cooling. The low animal moan of someone dying. Oh. Rolf Wutherick is thrown from the car. He lands 20 feet away in the dirt, alive but broken, jaw shattered, legs fractured, but alive. Donald Turnipseed climbs out of his Ford, shaken, bruised, but walking. He stumbles toward the wreckage and sees it. The twisted sculpture that used to be a Porsche. And inside, James Dean. His face is crushed, nearly unrecognizable. His chest is caved in, his neck is broken, blood everywhere. But his eyes are open. For a few terrible seconds, he's still conscious, still aware. Trapped inside the car that was supposed to set him free. A passing motorist stops, then another. Someone calls for an ambulance. But the nearest hospital is in Paso Robles, 30 miles away. By the time the ambulance arrives, 25 minutes have passed. They have to cut Dean out of the wreckage. Piece by piece, they pry the metal away. They lift his body onto a stretcher. One of the ambulance drivers later says Dean was already gone, that he died at the scene. Others say he held on, that his heart was still beating when they loaded him in. It doesn't matter. By 6:20 p.m., James Byron Dean is pronounced dead at Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital, 24 years old. 3 films, 1 life. Over. The police arrive. California Highway Patrol. Local sheriff. They secure the scene. They take measurements, skid marks, angles of impact, position of the vehicles, and they photograph everything. The Porsche from every angle, the interior, the steering wheel, the blood, the torn metal, the seat where Dean took his last breath. They document it all with cold, professional precision. Then something happens, something that won't be understood for 68 years. Those photographs are collected, filed, and buried, not destroyed, just hidden, locked away in an evidence room where no one will ask questions. The official report is written, accidental death, excessive speed, case closed. The photographs, they're marked restricted, no public access, no freedom of information requests. They simply vanish from the record. Why? What was in those photographs that couldn't be seen? What did the police find that needed to be hidden? For decades, researchers, historians, and Dean obsessives have asked these questions. Theories spread, conspiracy theories. Some said the crash wasn't an accident, that Dean was murdered, that powerful people in Hollywood wanted him silenced. Others said the photos showed evidence of mechanical failure, that Porsche was at fault, and a cover-up was arranged. Still others believed the photos were too gruesome, too disturbing, that they were hidden to protect Dean's image, to preserve the myth, but no one knew for sure, because no one had seen them. For 68 years, the world knew James Dean through the sanitized version of his death, the official story. A young actor driving too fast hits another car. Tragic. Preventable. A cautionary tale. Newspapers ran photos of the wrecked Porsche, but they were grainy, distant, almost abstract. You could see the car was destroyed, but you couldn't see the horror. You couldn't see what Dean experienced in those final seconds. Meanwhile, James Dean became immortal. Rebel Without a Cause was released 1 month after his death. Teenagers flooded theaters, weeping openly. Here was their spokesman, their icon, frozen forever at 24. Giant followed in 1956. Dean earned a posthumous Academy Award nomination, then another for East of Eden. He became the first actor ever nominated twice after death. His image was everywhere. Posters, magazines, T-shirts, the red jacket, the cigarette, the tortured stare. The tortured stare. He was bigger in death than he ever was in life. But the people who loved him, who really knew him, carried questions. His father went and spent years trying to get access to the full police report, denied. Dean's friends, actors like Dennis Hopper and Sal Mineo, who'd worked with him on Rebel, whispered about inconsistencies in the crash story. Dean's aunt and uncle in Fairmount wanted answers. They got silence. The Porsche itself became a legend. After the crash, it was purchased by George Barris, the famous car customizer. He planned to restore it, but strange things started happening. A mechanic working on the car had both legs broken when the engine fell on him. 2 doctors bought parts from the Porsche for their own race cars. Both were killed in separate crashes. The shell of the car was being transported on a trailer when it fell off and crushed a driver beneath it. People started calling the car cursed. In 1960, while on display in Florida, the Porsche disappeared, vanished. To this day, no one knows where it is. The mythology grew. James Dean the rebel, James Dean the icon, James Dean the eternal youth. But the truth, the actual physical truth of what happened on that highway, locked away, hidden, forbidden, until 2023. In March, the Fresno County Sheriff's Department made a quiet announcement. They were releasing previously sealed evidence from the James Dean crash investigation, 70 photographs, taken at the scene and in the immediate aftermath, photos that had been locked in an evidence box for nearly 7 decades. Photos that, according to the department, had been air-restricted to protect the integrity of the investigation and the dignity of those involved. When those photographs were finally released, the world stopped. Because what they showed was worse than anyone imagined. Far worse. The images are clinical, forensic. Shot in black and white, they document every detail. The Porsche is almost unrecognizable. The front end is completely obliterated, crumpled inward until the engine and the cockpit are virtually one. The steering wheel, which Dean custom installed because he wanted better control, is bent into a U-shape. The seat is soaked black with blood. Bits of glass and metal are embedded everywhere. You can see Dean's personal effects scattered in the wreckage, his sunglasses, a glove of pieces of his red jacket, and you can see, in the close-up shots of the interior, exactly where his body was, exactly how he was trapped, exactly how much force it took to destroy a human being. But there's something else in the photos, something that explains why they were hidden. In multiple images, you can see marks on the Porsche's frame, scratches, dents, impact points that don't match the collision with Turnipseed's Ford. Investigators at the scene noted them, measured them, photographed them from multiple angles, because they couldn't explain them. The damage suggested the Porsche had been struck or scraped by another vehicle before the fatal crash, but there was no other vehicle. No witness ever came forward. No evidence of a third car was ever found. Some automotive experts who've analyzed the released photos now believe Dean may have swerved to avoid something, or someone moments before the collision, that his trajectory was altered, that he was already in the process of losing control when Turnipseed pulled out. If that's true, then the crash wasn't just excessive speed. It was a reaction, an attempt to avoid something worse. We'll never know for certain. The investigation was closed within weeks. Turnipseed was found not at fault. Dean was blamed for driving too fast. The mysterious marks on the car were noted and ignored, and those photographs, the only real evidence of what happened, were hidden away, perhaps to protect Turnipseed, perhaps to protect the narrative. Perhaps because admitting uncertainty, admitting that Hollywood's brightest star might have died because of something more than youthful recklessness, was too complicated, too messy, so they buried it. And for 68 years the world believed the simple story. James Dean was buried in Fairmount, Indiana on October 8, 1955. More than 3,000 people attended his funeral. Most of them had never met him. They came because they felt like they knew him, like he'd spoken directly to them, like he was the only person who understood. His grave is still visited by thousands every year. They leave flowers, cigarettes, notes. Some kiss his headstone, others weep openly. Because James Dean didn't just die, he became eternal, frozen at 24, forever young, forever misunderstood, forever searching. But now, in 2023, we finally have the truth, or at least a glimpse of it. Those photographs don't give us all the answers. They don't solve the mystery of what Dean might have been swerving to avoid. They don't explain the strange marks on the Porsche. But they do something more important. They strip away the myth. They show us the brutal physical reality of what happens when a young man's need for freedom collides with the unforgiving laws of physics. James Dean wasn't a rebel. He was a boy who never got over losing his mother, a boy who spent his whole life trying to feel alive. And for a few brief moments behind the wheel of that silver Porsche he did. He felt free. He felt real. He felt like himself. And then it was over, not with violins or poetry. With metal and blood and silence, the photos were hidden because the truth is ugly, because icons aren't supposed to bleed. Because legends aren't supposed to be trapped, screaming inside twisted steel while strangers stand by helplessly. The world wanted James Dean perfect, eternal, beautiful. The photos showed him as he really was, human, fragile, mortal. Maybe that's the real lesson here. We hide the truth because the truth is unbearable. We create myths because myths are easier to live with. But every now and then, a dusty box gets opened, a secret gets told, and we're forced to confront the reality we've been avoiding. James Dean died alone on a California highway in 1955, but he never stopped speaking. Through those 3 films, through that haunted, hungry look in his eyes, through the questions he left unanswered, and now through those photographs. So here's my question for you. What would James Dean think of the world we've built? A world obsessed with image and performance. A world where everyone is trying to be seen, but no one wants to show who they really are. Would he recognize it? Would he understand? Would he understand? Or would he just climb into another fast car and drive until he found something real? And unfortunately, they don't make men like James Dean anymore.